A forest ecologist named Suzanne Simard injected radioactive carbon-13 into a paper birch in British Columbia back in 1992. And what happened next changed everything we thought we knew about how trees work. That carbon showed up inside a Douglas fir 60 feet away, which meant resources were traveling between trees in ways nobody had documented before. Her discovery, published in Nature and cited over 4,000 times since then, explains Amazon's $500 billion logistics network better than any business school case study ever written. And once you understand the connection, you'll never look at a cardboard box on your doorstep the same way. What Simard found was that trees aren't competing with each other at all. They're running a logistics network beneath the soil. Under every forest floor sits an infrastructure so sophisticated that scientists started calling it the Wood Wide Web, a term that sounds like a joke until you realize it might be the most structurally accurate description available. This underground network moves resources, sends distress signals, prioritizes allocation based on need, and builds redundancy into every connection. 450 million years of operation without failure puts any human system to shame. Amazon has been doing logistics for roughly 30 years, and Dave Clark, the former CEO of Amazon's worldwide consumer division, who built much of their fulfillment expansion, spent billions trying to solve problems that fungi figured out before dinosaurs existed. The strange part is that the solutions look almost geometrically identical. When Simard began her doctoral research at the University of British Columbia in the early 1990s, the prevailing view of forests centered on Darwinian competition. Trees fighting for sunlight, survival of the fittest, every organism for itself. The forestry industry operated on this assumption by spacing trees apart, eliminating competitor species, and maximizing individual growth. Her isotope tracking revealed something that upended a century of ecological thinking. Carbon-13 injected into a paper birch showed up in a Douglas fir 20 meters away, and not because the fir stole it. The birch sent it intentionally, directionally, and responsively based on the receiving tree's condition. Mycorrhizal served as the delivery mechanism, a fungal network named from the Greek words for fungus and root. These fungi form symbiotic relationships with tree roots, and the fungal threads called hyphae wrap around and penetrate root cells to create a physical interface between fungus and tree. The fungus gets sugars the tree produces through photosynthesis, while the tree gets phosphorus, nitrogen, and water the fungus extracts from soil. Standard symbiosis known since the 1800s. But here's the thing about Simard's work that departed from everything that came before. The hyphae don't connect to just one tree. A single fungal organism, one genetic individual, can connect to dozens or sometimes hundreds of trees across a forest. Different species, different ages, different locations, all plugged into the same physical network. Simard and her colleagues mapped these connections using DNA analysis and isotope tracing, and what they found looked less like biology and more like infrastructure engineering. The network wasn't random at all because it had architecture. Mother trees sat at the center of each network cluster, a term Simard coined for the oldest and largest trees with the most extensive root systems and the highest number of fungal connections. These mother trees linked to virtually every other tree in their immediate area, functioning as hubs. Medium-sized trees with moderate connections surrounded them, what network theorists call nodes with intermediate degree, and saplings with just a few links occupied the edges, drawing resources but not yet contributing much. The structure followed a hub-and-spoke pattern, the same architecture the Roman Empire used for its road system radiating out from Rome, the same design FedEx pioneered in Memphis in 1973, the same pattern your own nervous system uses when routing signals through spinal cord relay points. And this is where biology and business collapse into the same diagram, because Amazon built its entire fulfillment system around this identical architecture. Architecture alone doesn't explain much, though. What matters is what moves through it. Simard's forests use the mycorrhizal network to transfer carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, water, and defense signals. When bark beetles or western spruce budworm attack a Douglas fir, that tree releases chemical alarm compounds that travel through the fungal network. Connected trees receive the signal and begin producing defensive enzymes like phenolic compounds, terpenes, and peroxidases before the insects even reach them. The forest operates its own distributed immune system. Dying mother trees dump their remaining carbon stores into the network, and Simard's team measured them, transferring 4 times more carbon to their neighbors than healthy trees. Robin Wall-Kimmerer, the botanist who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, calls this the generosity of the dying. The network doesn't just share resources because it redistributes them based on condition and circumstance. Seedlings shaded beneath the canopy struggle to photosynthesize enough carbon to survive their first years, so mother trees send them supplemental sugars through the fungal highway. Simard's data showed that young trees in a connected forest survive at significantly higher rates than those in fragmented forests where logging roads or clear cuts disrupted the network. What you're looking at is a supply chain with inventory, distribution logic, demand sensing, priority routing, and inheritance planning. In 1997, the same year, Simard published her first major mycorrhizal network paper in Nature. Amazon opened its second distribution center in Newcastle, Delaware. Jeff Bezos was building something he couldn't fully articulate yet, and the architecture he chose, which Dave Clark would later scale to over 175 fulfillment centers in North America alone, looks almost identical to what Simard mapped beneath the forest floor. The parallel isn't metaphorical because it's structural. Structural similarities that emerge independently in completely different systems usually mean the underlying problem is identical. Mother trees function as large central hubs with fungal connections to everything around them. Amazon's regional fulfillment centers work the same way. These massive facilities, some over 1 million square feet, like the Bessemer, Alabama Center, sit at the center of distribution networks, serving entire geographic regions, and connect to suppliers, smaller sort centers, delivery stations, and ultimately doorsteps. Inside, Kiva robots, now called Amazon Robotics, after the $775 million acquisition in 2012, move entire shelving units to human pickers, eliminating the walking time that consumes 60% of traditional warehouse labor. Hyphae form the physical links, carrying resources between nodes in a forest. And at Amazon, that's the truck routes, the Amazon Air cargo planes flying out of Cincinnati, the delivery van paths, and the last-mile infrastructure. The hyphae of asphalt and air. Resources in a forest flow based on chemical signals indicating need, stress, or opportunity. Resources at Amazon flow based on data including purchase signals, browsing patterns, search queries, and cart additions. The mechanism stays the same because you sense a need and route a resource. Forest networks maintain redundancy so that if one pathway gets blocked by a dead root or a fungal connection broken by soil disturbance, resources reroute through alternative paths. Amazon builds the same redundancy by stocking multiple fulfillment centers with the same SKUs and routing multiple delivery paths to the same zip codes. When one path fails, the system adapts without central intervention. None of this is coincidence because it's convergent evolution. When you're trying to solve the same fundamental problem of efficient distribution across a spatially distributed network with variable demand, you converge on similar solutions. The mathematics constrain the solution space, which means biology and business arrived at the same architecture because the architecture works. The first principle from forest networks holds that hub architecture sacrifices local efficiency for system resilience. A pure optimization model would want resources flowing through the shortest possible paths with direct connections everywhere and no intermediaries taking a cut or adding transit time. Forests don't operate that way. They route enormous amounts of traffic through mother trees even when shorter paths exist between smaller trees. And the reason is that centralized hubs create network stability, provide coordination, and enable system-wide optimization that local optimization can't achieve. Simard found that when mother trees get removed from a forest through clear-cutting, disease, or logging for their valuable timber, the survival rate of surrounding trees drops dramatically. Not just because of lost shade or changed microclimate, but because the network fractures and the remaining trees lose their central coordination point. Information stops flowing efficiently and resource allocation becomes chaotic. Amazon learned this lesson in reverse. 90 fulfillment centers worldwide in 2013 meant their network stayed relatively decentralized, with many medium-sized nodes and few dominant hubs, and delivery times averaged 5 to 7 days for non-prime members. Respectable numbers, competitive with Walmart's distribution network at the time. That changed when they started building what logistics analysts call mega centers, fulfillment centers exceeding 1 million square feet and strategically located near major population centers. By 2023, Amazon operated over 110 of these massive facilities in the US alone, with dozens more globally, deliberately shifting toward a more hub-centric model, even though each megacenter cost enormously to build and operate. The result was that 2-day delivery became 1 day, and 1 day became same day in many markets. The hubs didn't slow the network down at all because they accelerated it. Hub architecture creates efficiency at scale that distributed architecture cannot match. A mother tree connected to 50 smaller trees can coordinate resource flow across the entire cluster by sensing which saplings need carbon, which mature trees have photosynthetic excess, and routing accordingly. Without the hub, each tree would need direct connections to all others, creating an exponentially complex network with n-squared potential pathways to manage. Amazon's megacenters follow the same logic. A single million-square-foot facility can stock hundreds of thousands of product SKUs, with some facilities holding over 20 million individual items. And when you order, the system doesn't need to figure out which of dozens of smaller warehouses might have your item. It checks the hub, because the hub has everything, and the hub coordinates. Network theorists call this preferential attachment, the tendency for well-connected nodes to attract even more connections and create stable hub structures. The same pattern shows up in airline routes, social networks, neural architecture, and forest ecology. The second principle states that network topology creates emergent intelligence. Ecologists studying mycorrhizal networks find something that challenges intuitions about decision-making, because individual trees don't decide where to send resources. No central nervous system exists, no command structure operates, and no CEO tree issues allocation orders. The network topology itself creates emergent allocation patterns instead. Carbon flows from high concentration areas to low concentration areas by following chemical gradients through the hyphae, and its diffusion physics shaped by connection architecture. Nitrogen moves similarly, while water flows through hydraulic pressure differentials. The physics of molecular movement and the geometry of connections combine to create intelligent distribution without any centralized intelligence. No single tree runs the operation because the operation runs itself through network structure and physical law. Amazon's operations work the same way, and this is where their system fundamentally diverges from traditional retail competitors. Walmart, Target, and other traditional retailers use centralized demand planning, where analysts at headquarters forecast what each store or warehouse needs based on historical sales, promotional calendars, and regional trends before pushing inventory accordingly. It's top-down, planning-intensive, and frequently wrong, since the industry average for retail forecast accuracy sits notoriously below 60% at the SKU level. Amazon invented anticipatory shipping and literally patented the concept in 2013. Their system moves products toward customers before customers even order, with their patent describing placement of items in trucks or inventory positioning in fulfillment centers based on predicted demand, so that when orders materialize, products already sit optimally positioned. No human decides where each of the 350 million plus products Amazon sells should sit at any given moment because the network decides. Algorithms analyze purchase patterns, regional preferences, seasonal trends, weather forecasts, local events, and even social media sentiment, and the system reallocates inventory continuously, millions of times per day. When a hurricane forms in the Atlantic and forecasts predict Florida landfall, products like generators, bottled water, batteries, and plywood automatically flow toward Florida fulfillment centers before orders spike. The system senses the coming demand gradient and redistributes without any human making that call because the network made it. That's mycorrhizal logic translated into code, where high-need areas pull resources automatically through the physics of the system. Network structure and flow algorithms combine to create intelligent allocation without any single point of executive control. Forest behavior during drought stress mirrors this exactly. Simard and other researchers found that when one section of forest experiences water scarcity, hydraulic redistribution occurs automatically, and trees in wetter areas send water through the mycorrhizal network to trees in drier areas. No tree decides to be generous because the water potential differential creates the flow, and network physics generates network intelligence. Your immune system operates identically. Cytokine signaling molecules travel through your bloodstream while immune cells follow the concentration gradients to infection sites, and no central brain coordinates each white blood cell. The network architecture and chemical physics create emergent targeting because this is universal logic for distributed systems. Amazon built that universal logic in silicon and software instead of fungus and root tissue. The third principle states that redundancy isn't waste because it's the price of survival. Traditional business education gets this catastrophically wrong. MBA programs teach efficiency by minimizing redundancy, eliminating slack capacity, running lean inventory, timing everything just in time, and single sourcing from the lowest cost supplier. The goal becomes a system where every resource is precisely allocated, no capacity sits idle, and no duplication exists, with waste positioned as the enemy. Forests disagree violently with this philosophy. Mycorrhizal networks maintain multiple pathways between any two trees, and if one fungal connection fails from disease, physical disturbance, an animal digging through, or soil chemistry changes, alternative routes exist. The network never optimizes for peak efficiency because peak efficiency in network terms means minimum redundancy, and minimum redundancy means catastrophic failure when anything goes wrong. Simard documented this during studies of logged forests. Forests with intact redundant fungal networks recovered from disturbance like fire, wind damage, or selective cutting far faster than forests where networks had been fragmented by clear cutting or road construction. The redundancy looked like wasting good times but proved to be survival infrastructure when stress arrived. Toys R Us violated this principle catastrophically. Single-source suppliers for key inventory and minimal warehouse redundancy meant they operated fewer than 900 stores served by a thin logistics network. When supply chains cracked during their financial struggles and key suppliers demanded better terms or walked away, no alternative paths existed. A forest would have routed around the damage, but Toys R Us couldn't. Amazon has learned this lesson repeatedly through sometimes painful experience. A tornado damaged an Amazon fulfillment center in Baltimore in 2018, and traditional logistics analysis would predict serious disruption with products unique to that facility becoming unavailable, delivery times spiking, customers suffering, and competitors gaining ground. The customer impact turned out almost invisible instead, with order fulfillment continuing without meaningful delay. Amazon doesn't store products in one location because they duplicate across the network, and the same SKU exists in multiple fulfillment centers within every region, sometimes in 5 or 6 facilities. When Baltimore went down, orders simply routed to Philadelphia, to Robbinsville in New Jersey, and to Sterling in Virginia. The network absorbed the damage and rerouted. Traditional metrics would call this expensive because storing the same product in 5 locations instead of 1 increases inventory carrying costs significantly. Amazon carries substantially more inventory relative to sales velocity than traditional retail efficiency metrics would suggest is optimal. But optimal assumes nothing ever goes wrong. No tornadoes, no pandemics, no supplier bankruptcies, no port closures, and no labor disputes. It assumes a stable world. Forests know better after surviving asteroid impacts, ice ages, continental drift, and countless local catastrophes. They know the world isn't stable. The COVID-19 pandemic made this visible for everyone watching. Retailers with lean, efficient, single-source supply chains collapsed under demand spikes and supply disruptions. Toilet paper vanished, electronics backordered for months, and grocery delivery slots disappeared. Amazon's redundant network strained but held. Multiple suppliers for critical categories, multiple warehouses stocking the same products, and multiple delivery paths reaching the same neighborhoods meant that when one pathway clogged from a supplier in China shutting down, a fulfillment center experiencing a COVID outbreak, or a trucking route facing driver shortages, others absorbed the flow. Imperfectly but functionally. The fourth principle holds that communication must travel faster than resources. This separates functional networks from truly optimal ones. Chemical signals in mycorrhizal systems travel through the network significantly faster than carbon, nitrogen, or water because the signaling compounds are smaller molecules that diffuse more quickly. When a tree detects pest damage from leaf tissue being consumed or bark being penetrated, the chemical alarm signal reaches neighboring trees hours or even days before any actual resources start moving in response. This timing gap isn't a bug because it's essential. The advanced signal allows receiving trees to upregulate defenses proactively by synthesizing defensive compounds, closing stomata, and adjusting resource allocation before the threat arrives. The early warning transforms response from reactive to prepared. The signal becomes the resource that enables efficient allocation of all other resources. Amazon understood this before almost any other retailer and invested accordingly. When you search for a product on Amazon, before you even click Add to Cart, the system is already communicating. Your search query tells the network what you might want. The product page you viewed signals intent. The items already in your cart indicate likely bundle purchases, and your browsing patterns that match historical purchase patterns of similar customers suggest probability weights. All of this transmits through Amazon's data infrastructure continuously, pre-positioning inventory, and pre-calculating fulfillment paths. Amazon's delivery network doesn't start working when you click buy now because it started working when you opened the app. A significant percentage of packages are already in transit toward your region before you complete checkout, positioned speculatively based on demand signals. Prime same-day delivery works in ways competitors struggle to match despite investing billions in logistics, and it's not that Amazon trucks are faster or that their warehouses are closer, though that helps. Amazon signals are faster because their communication infrastructure is more sophisticated. By the time your order is placed, the product has often already been moving toward you for hours. The forest equivalent shows a mother tree detecting approaching temperature drops through chemical signals and sending prepare your cell walls for frost messages to connected trees hours before thermometers register the change. When the cold arrives, the network is ready because the signal prepared the system. Your immune system works identically. Cytokine alarm signals travel through your bloodstream faster than the neutrophils and T cells they're summoning, and by the time immune cells reach an infection site, the local environment has already been prepared with inflammation initiated, complement proteins activated, and chemical gradients established. Communication infrastructure moves faster than the resources it coordinates because this is universal optimization logic. Traditional logistics treats the order as the starting signal, while Amazon treats the order as confirmation of signals that started much earlier. The fifth principle states that networks that share outcompete, networks that hoard. This might be the most important principle and the hardest for competitive business culture to accept. Simard's most controversial finding, the one that generated pushback from the forestry establishment and still sparks debate, showed that trees transfer resources to other trees with no apparent direct benefit to the sender. And not just within species. Paper birches send carbon to Douglas firs share water with cedars during drought, and alders that can fix nitrogen from air through bacterial symbiosis share that nitrogen with neighboring conifers that can't. The network doesn't discriminate based on competitive position because it shares based on need and connection. Traditional evolutionary logic centered on selfish genes and competitive fitness says this shouldn't happen. Resources should be hoarded, competitors should be starved, and self-interest should dominate behavior. Simard's data showed that forests with active sharing networks outperform forests without them on every metric that matters for long-term survival. Mixed species forests with strong mycorrhizal connectivity are more productive in total biomass, more resilient to disturbance, more resistant to pest outbreaks, and more stable across decades than monocultures or fragmented forests where networks have been disrupted. Sharing isn't charity because it's network strategy. A network where every node tries to maximize its individual position produces worse outcomes for everyone, including each selfish node, than a network where resources flow freely to where they're needed. Biomimicry researchers like Janine Benyus at the Biomimicry Institute call this nature's operating instructions, where you optimize for network health rather than node dominance. Amazon's logistics philosophy and broader business strategy converge here in ways that confuse traditional competitive analysis. Amazon operates one of the world's most sophisticated logistics networks after spending decades and tens of billions of dollars building it. They could keep it entirely proprietary by using it only for Amazon's own retail products and defending it as competitive moat. They share it instead. Fulfilled by Amazon lets any third-party seller, including direct competitors to Amazon's own products, access Amazon's warehouses, Amazon's picking and packing operations, Amazon's shipping infrastructure, Amazon's delivery network, and Amazon's customer service. You're competing with Amazon, and Amazon will deliver your products to your customers. Traditional competitive perspective would call this strategically insane because you don't give your competitors access to your best assets. But Amazon processes over 60% of its total unit sales through third-party sellers who use Amazon's logistics network. More than half of everything sold on Amazon is sold by someone else and shipped by Amazon. This changes the economics completely. More products on Amazon means more customers shopping on Amazon, since why go elsewhere when Amazon has everything? More customers means more behavioral data, more data means better demand predictions, better predictions mean more efficient inventory positioning, more efficiency means faster delivery, and faster delivery means more customers choosing Amazon. The flywheel accelerates. Amazon Web Services follows exactly the same logic applied to computing infrastructure. Amazon built massive server farms, storage systems, and networking infrastructure to run their own retail operations because they needed it to handle Black Friday spikes and global scale. Then they shared it by making it available to any company willing to pay. AWS now generates more operating profit than Amazon's entire retail operation. The infrastructure Amazon built for themselves became more valuable by sharing it than hoarding it ever could have been. The fungal hyphae don't ask whether the carbon they're transporting benefits the originating tree directly. They build network capacity and facilitate flow. The network grows stronger through use, and everything connected benefits, including the original nodes that could have hoarded. What 450 million years of fungal evolution figured out, and what MBA programs and logistics consultants are still learning, comes down to one unified insight expressed through 5 principles that all point to the same truth. Optimal distribution isn't about moving things efficiently through point-to-point paths because it's about building networks that move things intelligently through emergent system behavior. Hub architecture reduces complexity and enables coordination. Network topology creates intelligence without central control. Redundancy costs efficiency but purchases survival. Signal speed determines response quality and competitive position. Sharing grows network value faster than hoarding ever could. These aren't 5 separate ideas because they're 5 facets of a single geometric truth about how resources move through connected systems. The mathematics of networks, whether biological, digital, or physical, constrain the solution space and optimal answers converge. Suzanne Simard crawled through the dirt of British Columbia forests with radioactive isotopes and Geiger counters, mapping something invisible. Dave Clark and Jeff Bezos spent billions building warehouses and writing algorithms. The substrate differs with fungal hyphae versus fiber optic cables, chemical gradients versus machine learning models, and photosynthetic carbon versus cardboard boxes. But the architecture matches because the problem matches. How do you move the right resources to the right place at the right time in a world where demand is distributed, supply is variable, and disruption is inevitable? Forests solved it, and Amazon copied the homework, probably without realizing they were copying it. Convergent evolution doesn't require awareness, only similar selection pressures. Next time you see an Amazon box on your porch, delivered impossibly fast and routed through a network so complex no single human fully understands its real-time state, think about what's happening beneath a forest floor a few miles away. Fungal threads carrying sugars to struggling saplings, chemical alarm signals racing ahead of beetle invasions, carbon from dying trees flooding into the network one last time, and resources flowing toward need through physics and connection geometry. Same system with different materials, same intelligence with different implementation. The best logistics network in modern business wasn't invented in a Seattle boardroom or a Stanford computer science lab. It was discovered, and is still being discovered, beneath trees that have been running supply chains since before flowers evolved, since before dinosaurs, since before anything with a backbone walked on land. The ancient forest and the e-commerce giant appear to be 2 systems that seem completely unrelated, yet they converged on identical solutions. That's what happens when you're solving the same problem under the same constraints, because whether you're carbon or cardboard, bits or biology, the optimal network looks the same. That's what we explore here, the hidden structures connecting fields that seem unrelated. The principles that keep showing up everywhere because they're not really about forests or logistics or any single domain. They're about how distributed systems work at a fundamental level. Next time someone asks you what makes Amazon's logistics actually work, what the real competitive advantage is underneath all the technology and capital, you have an answer they won't expect. It's not algorithms, though those help. It's not robots, though those accelerate. And it's not even the billions of dollars invested. It's mycorrhizal, network architecture that fungi figured out before complex life existed, now implemented in warehouses and data centers. Tell me in the comments what's the most forest-like network you've encountered in business, in technology, or in your own life. Where have you seen hub architecture, emergent intelligence, redemptive redundancy, or radical sharing create something smarter than any individual participant? And if you want to see how termite mounds explain data center cooling, how insects solved thermal management problems that cost tech companies billions, or how slime mold solves traffic engineering better than urban planners, subscribe. We're just getting started on what biology teaches business. The forest has been taking notes for 450 million years, and we're just starting to read them.